let's see how to create a simple blog using Next.js. So we're going to start by creating a new Next application, and to do that I'm just going to run npx create next app, just like this. And then we need to provide the name for the new project. I'll call it simple blog. Okay, this is fine. And here I'm going to go with the recommended default, so I'm just going to hit enter, and that's it. And it's installing everything. It will take about a minute, and then our project will be ready to start working on. So I opened the folder containing our new project, our simple blog next project. And as you can see, we have here several files and folders. And we are going to focus on this one, the app folder. As you can see, at the moment it contains 4 files, the favicon, globals, layout.tsx, and page.tsx. Let's start by serving the application. So let's open the terminal. And now I'm going to run npm run dev for development. And you can see that the application is running, and we can click on this link to see it on the browser. And here is how it looks like. So on the left we have the project, and on the right we have the application itself running on localhost port 3000. Now I want to keep things very simple, so let's start by going to the layout file, and I'm going to remove from here everything that's not completely necessary. So if we scroll down a bit, we can see that we have this export default. This is the actual functional component that we are exporting, and this is the root layout. And here we are returning the HTML, and inside the HTML we have body, and then inside body we have children. This is where the actual component or the content of page.tsx goes. So I'm not going to change here too much, but I think that we can remove this, the class name. I mean, yeah, it's nice, but it's not completely necessary, so let's remove it, so it will be a little bit simpler. And now we can also remove these 2 constants. So this and this, I can delete them like this. And now it's a little bit simpler, and also these 2 imports. So it doesn't matter too much, but maybe a little bit simpler. So this is about layout.tsx. Now let's move on to page.tsx. And this one I really want it to be simple. So here is what we are returning, and basically we are returning a div, and I'm going to delete everything from here. I don't want any of this. And let's just write here hello world. And if we save, we can see hello world. So this is a bit simpler. Now for this simple demonstration, I'm not going to work with any kind of database. I'm simply going to work in a file, and the file will contain the content of my few blog posts. So in my app folder, I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it data. This is where I'm going to hold the actual data for the blog post. In this data folder, I want to create a new file, and I'm going to call it posts.ts. And in this file, I'm going to define the array for the different blog posts. So it's going to be posts, and each of the blog posts is going to be represented as an object. Each of these posts is going to have its slug, its title, and also its content. So here we have it. Here's the first post. It has its slug, its title, and its content, and the same thing for the other 2 posts. The other 2 objects representing the 2 other posts. I want to be able to use this array out of this function, so let's export posts. And now let's go back to our main file, our main page.tsx file. What I would like to show here in my main file is basically links to the different posts. So currently we have 3 posts defined in our array. I want to have a link auto-generated for each of them. So first, here I want to have an h1, heading 1, and it's going to say my simple blog. And also I'm going to add a little bit of styling to this heading 1, because by default Next.js uses tailwinds, which completely removes any styling from the default elements such as h1. So I added text 3 extra large, font bold, and MB6, and now it looks a little bit more like a heading 1. Also, this is not completely necessary, but I'm going to replace this div with main, which is basically another type of div, but its semantic meaning is this is the main content of this page. Again, you could just place here a div, it's fine. And once again, I'm not going to talk about styling too much, but I do want a little bit of padding, and also I want to change the font to sans serif. Now we want to have a link to each of the different posts. So the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to have here a UL element, and each of the links themselves is going to be an LI element. So let's start with the UL element. And now we want to access our array of posts. So the array that's defined here, this is the one that we're going to use. This is our array. And each of the elements in this array needs to be represented as a link here. And to do that, we're going to use map. So first we need to access our array of posts, which can be simply done by posts. So we should probably import it. Okay. And now that we imported it, we should be able to go over it using map. So posts.map. And this is JavaScript, of course, so it needs to be inside curly braces. Now, as a parameter to map, we need to send a callback. And the parameter to the callback that we need to write here is the current element in our array. Now, because this is an array of posts, I'm going to call the current element post. And now post is the current post that we're going over from the array. So let's start simple by writing the title of the post. So it's simply going to be post.title. And let's place it inside an li element. And now we can see the three titles of the three posts. Now, if I want these to be actual links, I need to use the link element inside my li. So here, inside the li, I'm going to add link. And we should probably import link from Next. So import link. And for each such link, we need an href. Now, the link needs to be to posts / and then the slug of the current post. So as you might remember, each of our posts has its own slug, and we're going to use the slug to generate the link to this post. So post.slug, and the title is what's going to be shown inside the link itself. And now we have three links, and if we hover over any of them, we can see at the bottom the link to this specific post. Now, in a minute, we will create the page to actually show each of the blog posts. But before that, let's say that I want an about page. And I'm only going to have one about page for my entire blog. So if I want that, all I need to do is to create here a new folder inside my app folder. So let's create a new folder. And I'm going to call it about. And inside about, I'm going to create a new file, page.tsx. So here inside about, I have page.tsx. And this is going to be very simple. It's simply going to be export default. And I'm exporting a functional component. So about page, and here I need function, of course, and I'm simply going to return a div. And let's simply have here an h1 and a paragraph. And that's about it. This is the nice thing about routing in Next.js, because as soon as we created this folder, the about folder, and the page.tsx file inside it, we are done. We already have the routing. So now I can go to about here, / about, and as you can see, the content from this page is served. So this is how simple it is to create pages on different routes in a Next application. Now we're going to use a similar idea for our posts, but of course we're not going to create a different folder for each of our posts. We're only going to create one, and it's going to serve as a wildcard. Now we have to follow the format that we defined for the links. So if we're going back to our main page, this one, the main page.tsx, we can see that this is the format that we need to follow. Each of the posts first need to be in posts, and then the name of the slug for this specific post. So first I need to create a folder called posts, and this is to allow routing to posts. So let's create a new folder, and it's going to be posts. And in this folder, I'm going to create another folder, and because this folder is going to serve as a wildcard, it has to be inside square brackets, like this. And inside these square brackets, I'm going to write slug. And what this means is that to navigate to this folder, the user won't just write slug, but slug will be replaced with the actual slug of the post that they want to see. Now, inside posts slug, here I'm going to create my new file, which once again is going to be page.tsx. And this needs to be the general structure. So posts, then I have my wildcard, slug in my case, and then page.tsx. And once again, it's a functional component, so export default function, and let's call it blog post page. And now we need to find a way on this page to extract the slug from the URL. Because the idea is that the URL will contain the slug of the currently shown post. So we need to know which post it is, so we can access our file and extract the information or the data for this specific blog post. And there is a very specific way to do that. As a parameter, we're going to have an object, and this object is going to have a field called params. We then need to specify the type for params. So colon here, and then we need another curly braces, and we need to specify the type, so params, and this is going to be a promise. And the value that's returning from this promise is another object, and this object is going to contain a field called slug, whose type is string. So this is a bit cumbersome, but this way we're going to be able to know the value for slug that the user just navigated to. So params is a promise, and this is why here I'm going to write await params. And of course, if I want to be able to write here await, I have to make this function asynchronous. And as we know, back from this promise, we expect an object, and there should be a field called slug in the object returning from the promise. So here I'm going to use this structuring to extract the value of slug. And let's start simple. Let's start by simply returning a div containing the slug. And now to access one of these posts, I simply need to follow this format or this routing pattern. So posts / and then the name of the post that I want to access. If, for example, I write here blah, then I can see here blah because this is what I'm returning from here. If I change it to something else, I know, blue, then this is what I can see here. But now I want to actually use it as the slug for my blog post. So let's go back to our posts file. And here I want to create a new function called getPost. And this one will be to find the post whose slug is what's sent as a parameter. So there is only going to be one parameter, which is the slug. And we're going to use posts.filter. Now as a parameter to filter, we need to pass a callback. And the parameter to this callback is the post that we're currently going over. So post, and if the slug of the current post is the one that we are looking for, then this is the post that we need to. And of course we need to specify the type for slug. So here it's going to be string. And let's also export this function from this file. So get post. And now we should be able to extract a blog post based on its slug. So here, after finding the slug, we're going to use get post. Here it is. And the import was added, of course. And as a parameter to get post, we can send the slug. And we expect to get back the corresponding blog post. And now we should be able to show the title for the post and also the content for the post. At the moment we get this error because we don't really have a blog post with this slug. So maybe here we should take into account the case in which the user tried to access a blog post that doesn't exist. So let's store the result of filter in a local constant. And if it was found, we're going to return it. Otherwise, we're going to return an object representing a non-existing post. So only if we could find a post whose slug matches what was sent to us, we're going to return this post. Otherwise, we're going to return this object that simply says that such an article could not be found. So if, for example, we're trying to access this slug that does not exist, of course, we can see the post does not exist. But now let's try to access, say, donkeys. And when I try to access this page, I get back the donkeys article. Let's try to access the dogs article. And here is the article about